But you guys, got another PC build video here for you. I know some of you guys do like the PC build videos, so I thought I'd take you along for the ride. It's not for everyone, but for those people that do like it, there you go. AMD Secure frame we're going to be using. I tried to get a Ryzen 9 9000 series processor. They sent it and it went missing, and I had to reorder it and refund my money. So I ended up getting the Ryzen 7 because the Ryzen 9 was out of stock. Go figure. But that's still a good processor. Went with the Samsung 9100 Pro 2TB. This is a PCI Express 5.0, so pretty fast SSD. So that should be pretty good. It has got the Phison chipset on there, so I'll need to look into sorting that out as well. Went with the 32GB 6000 MHz DDR5 Corsair Vengeance RGB. I went with a lot of Corsair stuff this time round, so I might up this to 64GB at some point, but 32 gigs will be enough for now. Now, I've read a lot of reviews on this particular screwdriver here. This is like Linus Tech Tip screwdriver. Linus has not sent me one of his screwdrivers, so I've seen a lot of people saying that this one is very similar, if not the same as his screwdriver, and you can get it on Amazon. So I thought I'd give it a try and see how it goes. I also went with the Tough Gaming series motherboard. I've had really good experience with these motherboards. This is the X870E Plus Wi-Fi 7. It is a pretty decent motherboard. It's not the cheapest, but it is a nice motherboard. So that's what I went with for this build. So we've got 4 slots for our memory. We also have our socket, which I'll be removing to put on our secure plate, which I'll show you that in a second. This motherboard is a pretty decent motherboard. I've had no problems with Tough Gaming boards. I've had quite a few of them over the years. And yeah, I must admit, I do like these Tough Gaming type boards. So we're going to be populating and prepping the whole board with all of the components we're going to be using here, but there is lots of M.2 slots on here for storage as well if I need to add more drives at a later date, which I will do. I've moved away from the mechanical drives now. I use those on my NAS, but I've used basically storage drives, NVMe storage drives now for my system, which makes it super fast. So also what we're going to do here is take a quick look at the board here and take a quick look at the socket to make sure all of the pins are nice and straight and there's no bent pins before we start building the system. The last thing I want is to find issues with the board and I have to send it back. So what we're going to do is basically change this here and put the AM5 secure frame on. So we're going to need to remove these 4 screws. So let's go ahead and get the right screwdriver for this job and remove those 4 screws. I'm going to use this trusty screwdriver here and see what it's like. It's a ratchet type screwdriver. It's very similar to Linus Tech Tip's screwdriver. And I've seen channels do massive reviews on this and said it comes up pretty well. And it's a fraction of the price. Now, obviously, if Linus sent me one of his screwdrivers, I would accept it, but he hasn't. So I'm having to use the old cheaper version of screwdriver. So let's go ahead and remove this here very carefully. And again, you don't have to do this step. You can just insert your CPU into the frame if you want to and not use one of these secure frames. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to leave the back plate as is. It's already lined up right here. So just got to be careful we don't damage the pins. Now, this screwdriver has loads of attachments on it as well in the top end of the actual handle. So that's good for all of the jobs that you need to do when building PCs. Now, this little kit comes with its own compound. We're going to use our own compound. It's got a little tool in here to remove it if you need to, and some screws. And also we have the secure plate as well. And if you haven't used one of these, this just keeps the CPU secure in its socket. According to people online, some people say it's to stop the compound from getting all down the side of the CPU and making it a right mess because of the design of the CPU. And I've seen people saying that it's to keep the CPU nice and secure in situ. So take it at what you will and choose whatever one you want to believe. So we're going to go ahead and basically line this little triangle up on the board here. And you can see there is a little notch here on the board. You need to make sure you get this around the right way. And once we get this in the right position, we're just going to drop it in situ and just give it a little tiny wiggle like that to make sure it's sitting in there. like so. And now we've got that in situ. We can now offer up our actual plate. So what we're going to do is just offer the plate over the top and make sure that triangle is right where it's supposed to be. And it should sit right over the top, and you'll see what it does. It basically makes it nice and flush and stops any sort of compound getting down the sides of those grooves. And it also keeps the CPU in. Now, some people have said that it does help with temperatures as well. I must say I've not seen any temperature difference by using one of these. So we're going to go ahead and put the 4 screws in that comes with the kit. Now, I've left those 4 screws on the actual socket bracket that was on there originally, because that's what's going to stay in the box for in case I have to replace it. And we're just going to drop these 4 screws that come in the kit. They are exactly the same as what's on the frame originally. So we're just going to hold this down and tighten this up just like so. I think I had the ratchet open there, but I'll soon sort that out. And once we've done that, we've got the 4 screws in, and we should now be able to tighten these up a little bit like so, and go round from corner to corner until you get them nice and tight. That's what you want to do here. Now, it does come with its own tool in the kit as well, so you can go round and just give that a little turn like so to make sure it's nice and tight. Because believe it or not, that retention lever, when you're pulling that down, really does go nice and tight, and you need to make sure that this has got enough pressure holding that CPU down in its socket so it's touching the pins properly. So next we've got that nice and tight. Now what we're going to do is keep this safe, because if you ever need to send it back for RMA, or you need to sell the actual motherboard or sell the computer, you really want to replace that or give that to the person. So make sure you keep that safe in its box. Now we need to remove this bracket, because we're not going to be needing this, because we're going to be using a all-in-one liquid cooler. So let's just go ahead and undo these 4 screws. And once we've removed these, we can remove this bracket, and we're going to keep that safe as well in the box as well. Now, once we've undone all these 4 screws, we can then remove the brackets. And again, the brackets should now be removed and kept safely, just in case you need to send the board back for RMA. Again, what we're going to do here is use this memory. Now, of course, all of the components do come with this little plastic film here on everything to protect their logo or whatever it is you want to protect. But just make sure you remove all of that. And what we need to do is line this notch up with the board. And we need to remove the little pegs here back. So these ones are solid, and these ones here, we don't have to touch these. So just line it up and basically click it into position. You'll hear a little click. I like to do mine on a firm surface like this desk here, but some people do it on a box, on the motherboard box. I've never liked that idea, because the motherboard does actually flex quite a bit. And if you do get a bit of flex in the board, it can break the traces on the board. And that's why I don't like using the motherboard box for pushing down. You can see the force that you have to give it, and you'll hear a click. And basically that's nice and firm using the desk rather than using a box. So we're just going to go ahead and line this up. So the label normally faces the actual I/O shield there. That's normally the way it goes. On most motherboards I see that have that label facing the I/O shield. So once that's done, we've got our RAM in. What we need to do now is put in our drive. So I'm going to remove these 2 screws right here, and we're going to put in our drive. Now I'm going to go ahead and order some more drives and basically populate the rest of these types of drive bays. I'm not going to do all of them, but I do need at least 2 more drives to add in. I want a 4 terabyte and another 2 terabyte for my virtual machine. So we're going to remove this here. The screws stay on the unit itself, and you'll notice there was a thermal pad on there, and this is where we're going to populate our new drive. So all you need to do here is remove the drive from its box and slot it in. You'll see there's one little notch on there that just needs to line up with the notch on the board. Slot it into place, and there's no screw on this one. It has a little lever that you push down at the back and then just snaps into position like so. Can't be more simpler than that. And then all you need to do is remove the plastic cover on the thermal pad on the bottom here. Make sure you remove that, because if you forget to remove it, it's not going to keep your drive nice and cool. And believe it or not, these drives run super hot. So These Gen 5s are the latest in technology, and that can be a major problem if you're not keeping them cool enough. So you want to keep these nice and cool. Putting these on can be a bit tricky. Just line it up on the little standoffs there, and then once you've got that pushed on top of the drive, you can go ahead and tighten up the screws. It's that simple. Next, I need to put the standoffs on the motherboard here, and this is for the all-in-one liquid cooler. We're going to be using this Mystique 360 ARGB cooler from Deepcool. It's a really decent cooler for the money. It's very affordable, comes with the ARGB fans already pre-installed, and all we need to do is put the little bracket and standoffs on here. Now, because we're using AM5, we just need to leave the back plate as is and just use these little tiny standoffs here for the pump to sit on top of. So let me go ahead and screw these in. They only go in one way. They've got one short bit of thread and one long thread. You want the long thread at the top, and that way we can put the pump on to the top of that. You'll see it, a small recessed sort of screw on the bottom. So we're just going to screw these in with your fingers. You don't need to go super tight with these. Just go finger tight and a little bit more pressure, and that should be good enough. And we're just going to put the 4 of these on. Now, we're not going to be fitting the pump right now. Some people will shout in the comments and say, oh, you should put the pump on there, you should do this, you should do that. Just do it the way you like doing it. I just have found a really nice little method of building PCs, and it works for me. So use whatever method you like to when you build your PC, because everyone has their own way of building PCs. And also everyone will have their own components that they would like to use. So again, that's another thing I see in the comments where people say, why didn't you use this RAM, or why didn't you use that GPU? You know, each to their own, I suppose. Now, I will say that if you are installing this liquid cooler on a AMD system, it's pretty straightforward and easy. If you look at the manual, there's a little bit more involved on an Intel-based CPU, but it's pretty straightforward on an AMD. You just have to do what I've done so far. Add these little brackets on and you're good to go. So another thing is other people have their own way of installing all-in-one liquid coolers. I'll show you my way of doing it, and it's very simple and easy. So there's our case. We've got the CORSAIR 4000D. This is an ARGB system. It does come with 3 fans on this one. Now, this is not a sponsor from CORSAIR, but I can tell you they have literally knocked this case design out the park. It is really lovely to build in. They thought of every little thing you can think of in this case, and tip me hat to CORSAIR for building a proper quality case and at a very affordable price. So we're going to just drop the actual motherboard in. Now, I've checked the standoffs and make sure all of the standoffs in the right position for this board. That's important. Otherwise, you'll ground the board out and you'll cause yourself problems. So whatever board you're putting in, make sure these standoffs are in the right positions. I've already done that. So what we're going to do now is screw this bad boy down, and we should be able to move on to the next phase. So let's go ahead and get some screws and get this screwed down. I'm not going to bore you with every single screw, but it comes in this little box here with all the accessories, and there's tons of stuff in here with this case. The one I'm using is an ARGB version, but they do a non-RGB version if you just want plain Jane with no fans and just a case. So let's go ahead and we'll get this screwed down. And again, I'm just going to quickly screw the system down. And there's a few of them on here. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws we need to screw in on this. And there's one standoff that's non-screw. So we just need to screw a couple of these in. Let me just quickly do one more, and then we'll move on to the next phase of the build. It's that simple, really. Building computers has never been easier, and I think when you build your own, you'll get a lot of pleasure out of it. And I'm always here to help people with problems with PC builds if they need any help. Now, you can see we've got 3 fans at the front here. I'm leaving these in situ. These fans are the RS120 ARGB, and again, they're not the best fans in the world, but they do come with 3 already pre-installed, and I've got another 6 here. And I was going to change the ones on the all-in-one liquid cooler, and I was going to put a couple down the bottom, but I sort of eased off a little bit on the fans, and I'm using this Thermalright hub again just to basically control all of the fans. Now, these all plug into one. They daisy chain, and they just basically plug into the board. but we're going to be using a hub here. And I'll show you all that in this video as well. It's pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do next is basically put in these CPU power cables here. Now, another problem I see a lot of people doing when they're building PCs, plug these in early, and that way you won't have to mess around when the radiator's in place and bust all your hand up trying to get the cables in because it's so tight. But believe it or not, Corsair have actually thought about this and left a little cutout at the top, which makes it super easy. Now we're going with the Corsair RM1000E series, and this is NVIDIA 5000 series ready for the RTX 5000 series GPUs. So when I upgrade my GPU, it will be all ready to go. Now you might be thinking this is sponsored by Corsair. It's not sponsored by Corsair. They have not sent me any stuff, and they're not paying for the review of this video. I just went with this sort of stuff. Now you can see I've got the cables in here already plugged in, and again, this is the best way of doing it I've worked out over the years. Rather than fumbling around, you can straighten all the cables out the way you like and get them plugged in now. That way you ain't got to worry about these. But the only way you can do this is if you're using a modular power supply. Now we can see the cable is now poking out the top here. I'm just going to nip that on a cable tie there, and we're going to run that down the side here, and it has got already cable ties pre-installed on this case, which makes things a lot more easier. So let me just get that all tied down the side there so it's nice and tidy like so, and we can tidy this up a little bit later on. I don't go too crazy on the cable management like some people and put about 30,000 cable ties on a build. No one's going to see it. I just get it reasonably tidy. So we also got an area down here, and there's a back plate we can remove here to get access to the back plate, which is very nicely thought of as well. Now I know some people will be thinking that 1000 watts is overkill, and I could have got away with say 750 watts in this build, or 850. To be honest with you, I like to have a bit of a headroom when it comes to wattage. I don't like using the power supply up to the maximum of what it's capable of. I like to always have a little bit more headroom. That way, if I ever upgrade anything or put anything in there, it's always got that little bit of extra power. Plus, it just doesn't have to work as hard when it's working at 100% full capacity. You've got a bit more headroom there for the power supply to work more efficiently. So that's the way I look at it. And I just think for the extra bit of money, we're just going to go with 1000 watt power supply. Now, for all those people that like to use cable extensions as well, just a word of warning here, make sure you get good quality cable extensions for your power supply. Otherwise, they can be a point of failure, and also they can also melt and cause problems as well, like fire. So be very, very careful on what ones you're buying. You're basically downgrading the cables that come with your power supply with those El Cheapo ones that you can purchase. Now, another thing I will say, I know they look great when you're finishing a build off. Again, a lot of PC flippers will use them on cheap parts, and then they put the cheap cable extensions to make it look all expensive. But again, some of them are okay. I've used them before, and some of them are pretty poor quality. So just make sure you buy the right ones. So I'm just going to use these 2 thumb screws to tighten this up, and there's a couple of options here for an extra couple of screws. So I'm just going to populate these just to make it a little bit more secure in there, because those 2 thumb screws might not be enough. So I'm just going to quickly screw these in. There's a bit of jiggering and juggering around. That's because a tripod is right in my way. I don't normally build computers with a tripod there. So it does make the job that little bit harder when you're building PCs with a tripod. So if you see me fumbling about, that's the reason why. We've got a big tripod right in front of where the build is, and I'm standing at an angle. So what we don't want to do now is put all the cables in. So I've tucked them through, and again, you've got the Type-C cable here, and there's also the other cables that need to go in, like USB 3.0 and the 24 pin. Just plug those in. Now I'm just going to straighten these up a little bit. I'm not going to go too crazy on it. I know some people go absolutely crazy and want these every single cable strand straight so it looks perfect. It's a PC at the end of the day. It's going to be sitting in a corner working away, doing all the work that I need it to do. I don't need to worry about a cable that is slightly out of alignment. So I've done all the bottom ones here. These are your audio. These are your RGB. These are your USB cable for the power for the pump as well. They'll be in there. The front panel connections are on there as well. So this is your RGB. These are all plugs you just plug in into the motherboard. And these will all be situated in different places for different motherboards. And all this information will be found in your motherboard manual. And these are all plugged in right here, as you can see here. So pretty straightforward stuff. And what we're going to do next is move on to the next phase, which is putting in a back fan here. Now, I've used one of those CORSAIR fans that I bought, and I'm just leaving these quite loose at the moment because I don't want to go super tight here. I want this sliding up and down because I don't know how much play I'm going to have when I put the radiator in. I may need to have to remove this fan, so that's why I'm not committing to it in any one position. So here is the radiator. It's quite big. I just need to remove these little sticky things. And I was going to change these fans with those actual CORSAIR fans, but do you know what? These are all interlinked fans, and I'm going to leave these on the radiator because they look really nice. And they don't look much different to the fans that I'm putting in. So hopefully there's not much difference when it comes to RGB. Because I use a static color, I don't use the rainbow effect on my fans. So I'm going to connect these up. I'm going to leave these on, and you can see that is all now all ready to go. These are the fans I was going to change, but to be honest with you, the quality of the fans that are on there look better than what I've got here. So hopefully there's not much difference in RGB. If there is, then I'll change them out. But other than that, we're just going to stick with these for now. So we're going to change on the fly, as you always do when you're building PCs. You change as you go. So you always have to have a plan B when building PCs. So what we're going to do next is just going to put the brackets onto the pump. Now, if you're wondering about the pump and whether all of the compound is going to go everywhere, it has already got compound on here. You can wipe this off if you want to and put another type of compound. I was going to do that, but you know what? We're just going to roll with it and leave the compound on there and see what temperatures we get. If we get super high temperatures, we can always change that compound. Now, the way this bracket will go is it will sit on here and you have to screw it into position. I'm going to have to remove this plastic cover that is protecting the compound, but that's the way it's going to sit. And we just need to screw these down. They give you all the screws in the kit. So let me just pull this off right here. If I smudge the compound, I've always got more compound to hand, so I'm not worried about that. So let me just go ahead and screw this down. And again, I'm just going to do this lightly first and use a bigger screwdriver to tighten that up. And we should be good to go. So I'm going to test fit the radiator inside the case first. You can see I've had to remove that fan because this radiator is absolutely massive. And this is one of my pet hates with manufacturers when they're building these cases. They would just say fits a 360mm radiator up the top. But they are all different lengths. You can see there's a little bit added on the end there. And this makes this radiator quite long. And it's barely fitting in there. It's a bit of a tight squeeze. So hopefully I can make it fit where there is no rubbing of the tubes on the fans. It looks like it's going to be okay. I might not even be able to use that fan. So what I'm going to do here is just plug in the cables that come with this actual radiator here and these fans. So what I'm going to do is plug these in. They should daisy chain. And this is another thing that I've noticed as well. They barely give you just enough cable. I mean, that is literally on the limit. So just it's like right down to the millimeter. Yes, it's probably stopping with saggy cables dropping down, but give a little bit more. So I've got a bit more play there. I mean, it's barely enough cable there, which is a bit of a tight squeeze. So let me just pop that in. There's a bit of a fiddle, but there we go. That's in now. It might be okay. I might be just ranting over nothing there, but here you go. That's all in. So we've got one cable that needs to go into the board. So I'm just going to try and put this in so you can see how big it is. It's not going to fit like that, Bri. Pull it back out. You know, what am I trying to do there with that fan there? And this is the problem when, oh, there we go. I've worked it out. You've got to go over the top. There we go. We're in. So once we slide her in, and she should go in like so. There's a bit of a tight squeeze, but we're in now. And there seems to be a little bit more room up there than I initially thought. It was just a tight squeeze to get it in. Maybe having that fan there didn't help. Now, like I said, you've got a nice gap down the end there to get to your cables if you need to. And there's also this little slidey thing here, which helps you slide the radiator to the front, because we're using 120mm fans. So you can set this to 120mm and basically set it in the right position. And once you get it in the right position, you can just lock that little screw down and it will lock it into position. So that should be good enough. Now, of course, they always give you tons of screws here, but we're going to use them. But you don't need to use all of the screws. I noticed I can't use one screw there at the front, but that's okay. It's just one screw. All the rest can be populated. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this all the way down. Now, don't be using electric screwdrivers and things like this. You're going to end up stripping the screws or stripping the thread inside the radiator. You don't need to do that. Just use a hand screwdriver. And you can see this handy little groove down the bottom here, which is going to be useful for plugging in cables. I found it a really nice case to build in. So again, like I said, there's a little bit of room here, a few mil there. So it was big enough and the measurements worked out okay in the end. It was probably just me having a bit of a moment. But yeah, you can see it fits in there like a glove. And now you might be thinking, well, we've got to put the pump on. And this is how I fit an all-in-one liquid cooler. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments section. I'll be happy to read your comments. Just going to remove that plastic thing again. And we're just going to put the pump on. Now, of course, I've got the PC standing upright. Again, you can do yours the way you like to do it. I've got the camera in front of it, so I have to have it upright. I would normally have it facing down flat on the table. And that makes building a PC a little bit harder. Yes, you can use overhead cameras. I used to have those, but they've been removed from this office. So let's go ahead and start putting the screws in, and we can move on to the next step. So you've got 4 screws here. You just have to line this up and basically screw it down. Now, again, like I said, I'm screwing from the side. I can't really see what I'm doing here, but we're just going to screw these down. And again, you don't need to do these super duper tight. Just do them alternatively. So basically diagonally, and then work your way around and you should be good to go. Next, we've got to do a bit of cable management. That's as far as I've got with this. It looks good enough for me. I know it's not the best cable management in the world, but you know, I really don't care. Once the side panel's on, you're not going to see it. And I'm always messing around with computers, so it's no point me going too crazy. I'm just going to repurpose this 4070 Ti. I will buy a newer card once it comes out. I've not had this one too long, so it's good enough for this build. I do want to get myself a 5080, but I'll wait until they release the 5080 Super. Hopefully it's worthy of an upgrade, because the 5070 Ti is not really worthy of an upgrade from this particular card. Should have cleaned that off a little bit better, but hey, it's a PC at the end of the day. It's not a showpiece. It's there to do a job, and that's why it's you know, a little bit dusty, but that's okay with me. So what we're going to do is plug in that cable. Would help if I put that round the right way, but I put it round the other way. There we go. And it's a funny thing when your eyesight starts to go. It's not very nice, because everything is so difficult without a decent pair of eyes. And there she is. She's pretty much done. I've just got to screw that down, and there's the finished result. It looks okay. Nothing too special, but it's good enough. And you got all your temps on there on the pump. This camera's not doing it justice. It looks better in person. But again, like I said, it's a pretty nice little build. It'll do for what I need it for, which is rendering videos and making content. So let me know your thoughts, what you think in the comments section down below, and what you'd have done different, and I'll be happy to read your comments. If you've watched it this far, then mention pickled onions in the comments section. My name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. Just want to say a quick shout out to all my YouTube members. I do appreciate the support, and I shall catch you in the very next video. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.